Welcome back to Digesting Dark, where we are tackling the Netflix series Dark one episode at a time. For this podcast, we watched Season 3, Episode number 5, titled Life and Death, and we are here to talk all about it and break everything down. I am Zach Brooks, and I am joined by the slightly in the future version of Martha from the alternate world to my version of Martha from the alternate world, Aaron Brooks. Oh.
Hey. That was a nice light episode.
Yes, yeah. It was very heavy on the life, not so heavy on the death in that episode, right?
Yeah, no notable deaths there at all.
No. So, of course, we are going through Dark one episode at a time, so if you have not yet watched Season 3, Episode 5, turn this one off because we're going to spoil it. But we will not be talking about anything that happens beyond this episode, and we're going through each episode with no future knowledge of the rest of the season. Make sure you don't miss an episode of Digesting Dark by subscribing on your favorite podcatcher. We're on Apple, Spotify, iTunes. That is Apple, but that's like the alternate universe version of Apple. Player.fm, Google Podcasts, all of that. We also put up all of these podcasts on YouTube, so you can subscribe on YouTube as well. Just look for Digesting Dark on there, and you can subscribe on that. And make sure you keep sending in your feedback to us, digestingdarkpod@gmail.com. Include the episode number in the subject line so we know which podcast to look at that feedback for. So if you're staying along with us, then you would want to send in your feedback for episode number 6. Put that in the subject line. We're also planning, if you heard on our last podcast, we're planning a feedback show, full-on feedback show, between episode 7 and episode 8. So we're going to stop after we watch the penultimate episode before we watch the finale of Dark and just do a full-on feedback show. So definitely get your feedback in for that as well. You can mark in the subject line if it's for that episode specifically. So if you want to talk about like more general overall themes, predictions for the finale, show recommendations, things like that, shows that connect to this, any of that you can send in. That email address again is digestingdarkpod@gmail.com. We've got life and death today. Lots of death in this episode. RIP to a lot of people. Or is it?
Yeah. Right.
All right, well, before we get into this one and get into our overall takes, let's get just a little bit of feedback that we have from the last episode, and we can kind of talk about that. We have Rupesh sent in, and he said that there's actually a few other big reveals from the family tree at the end of Season 3, Episode 2 that we might have overlooked. He said the parentage of Celia, Helge, Peter, and Regina are all on there, and he said he didn't know if we just tried not to see those or if we noticed them. He didn't actually put who they are, but pointed out that there is a whole lot of parentage on that family tree.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, just, I guess, kind of bad as a podcaster, but with this, but I kind of tried to only glance at the chart after you kind of poisoned the well early on. I kind of also don't like it now. So I don't know if that's because of what you said or because of my
I didn't like
experience.
it, or because I pointed out the Hannah Tuber thing.
Just because you like, just early on, it seemed like early on in the Season 3 discussions, there was a lot of anti that chart.
Well,
just
and they show it.
shown.
Yeah, the thing is they show it so much now. Like, they showed it a lot in this episode. I actually picked up a couple things from that. One thing that I will mention that I noticed from the chart, and I mean, the show's putting it out there, so I guess, like, you know, I'm not sitting there with a microscope at the edges, because there is a lot of stuff at like the very edge of the chart that I can't see what that is, but the stuff towards the center is pretty much in focus.
Yeah, and so, I mean, just overall, I don't really look that much at the chalk on the walls or all of that. I'd rather, I don't know. At this point, I want to be almost like an active passenger on the rest of this journey. So, like, looking at that stuff to me isn't that appealing.
Letting St. Christopher guide you.
Yes, exactly. My favorite saint, St. Chris.
So Andrea also wrote in, and she said that we were talking about who Celia is, and she said she's pretty sure as well that that's the woman who's with Elizabeth at the end of Season 1 and the end and Season 2. I think that's pretty much confirmed. Well,
has anybody not been named other than Scarface?
Well, yeah, it's a couple characters in this episode that we're going to talk about have been unnamed. And we do have some babies that we don't know who they're going to be as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think we're under the assumption that Celia, I think we do have to get, I mean, we got to get confirmation. Celia, it seems, is going to be Bartos's wife, who is going to be the parent, and they're going to be the parents of Agnes and Noah. So, we just need confirmation that she's Celia. Now, in this episode, I did notice something from the family tree, and if it's okay with you, I'd like to point it out.
Oh yeah, sure. I'm fine with you pointing it out. It's not a strength of mine.
It appears that Celia is the offspring of Egon Tiedemann and Hannah. So I'm sure we will get that confirmed, but it was pretty in focus when they showed the family tree in this episode. So
I hope that scars not resolve a botched
birth
abortion attempt or birth.
Oh no, I don't think so. I think it's probably something that happened. We're not talking about Katerina's family here. This is Hannah. Although I guess they are all in the same family.
Mm-hmm.
But
we are talking about Katerina in a sense. That is what Hannah goes by.
That's true. Well, I mean, I guess
maybe that screws up some family tree issues that whoever's recording the family tree maybe has.
Could be. I think that they have more knowledge of that though. But maybe. What that does mean is that Hannah, if Hannah is the mother of Celia is the mother of Noah and Agnes. That means Hannah is the grandmother of Agnes, which means Hannah is related to Ulrich as well. And that also means that if where else was I going with this? If Egon Tiedemann is the father of Celia, so Barto's great grandfather is also his father-in-law. So that's fun. So yeah, it adds to the tangled web that they leave.
And so Ulrich is sleeping with his great grandmother.
I think you got to keep going further back.
Great grandmother.
Well, no, I guess Ulrich's grandmother is Agnes, and then her mother is his great grandmother. No, his great grandmother would be Celia, and his great grandmother would be Hannah. So yes, he's sleeping with his great grandmother. So, but of course, his great grandmother is the offspring of his daughter. Oh no, I guess she's not. Celia is Egon Tiedemann. There's probably a way that you could trace Ulrich's lineage of being Martha's father, and Martha somehow being an ancestor of Hannah.
Yeah, I remember there used to be the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire game, like on like computer, like where you'd play along, and like there was a question that was like, your brother's son, who is that in relation to you? And I would like get that wrong. So at this point, trying to track familiar branches in this show, I can't do it.
Well, congratulations.
I can, but
I guess not congratulations to you, but lucky for you, your brother doesn't have a son, so you don't have to even remember it.
Yeah,
right now.
Sure.
And then let's see a little bit more feedback on season 3, episode 4. So the last podcast that we did, Adrian Colley he wrote in to mention how Egon gives Hannah the St. Christopher medal. So as we brought up, we see the origin, and she doesn't seem happy with that. And Adrian says, I suspect that the journey of this medal through time is as complex, as interesting as Jonas's travels. Any sense where Egon got it from?
Wow, I didn't even think about it. No.
I don't think it's just that Egon, I mean, maybe it's just that Egon went to like a jewelry store and got it. It did look pretty new, but we don't really see a lot of things coming into the show that aren't bootstraps. So it does seem like it will turn out that like that got sold to.
Does Agnes Agnes wearing it when she arrives, like the first time we see her?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I would think I'd remember that too.
Yeah, I mean, so I did notice in not this episode, but the episode before that, when they would show Alt Martha a lot, the Alt Martha who was in the Prime world, so the one who was with Adam, she often had a necklace with the coin on, and I was like, I wonder if that's the coin. And then I actually went back and watched some scenes with the coin, and I realized, like, after Jonas gives her the coin at the end of this episode, she pulls it out of her pocket before she travels from the stranger, and she must put it on when she's with Adam. So, yes, tracking that coin. Adrian, it's very good that you brought that up, because that is like driving me mad. Like the last episode, Agnes was making me go insane. This episode, the St. Christopher coin is making me go insane, so much so that I went through like multiple episodes, just like scrubbing through them on Netflix, trying to find scenes involving the coin so I could try to track the timeline of this coin.
Yeah.
And there's still holes, I think. I'm pretty sure there's holes. I wasn't able to go through every episode of Dark, obviously, but I'm still trying to figure out how certain characters come in possession of the coin.
Yeah.
I think we can safely say it's the cursed coin of St. Christopher, though.
Yeah, for sure.
We see 2 characters in this episode die in possession of St. Christopher. All right, so we have another email on episode 4 after he just watched The Origin from Matt. And Matt says that he is following along with us. He's watching the episodes and then listening to the podcast. So thank you, Matt. Thank you for joining us on this journey. And his question is, are we supposed to understand the motivations of any of the characters on this show? Perhaps I was wrong to not do a rewatch of the first 2 seasons before starting season 3, but I just can't seem to figure out what anybody actually wants. Am I missing something here, or is the intent of the show and basically what we are leading up to in this final reveal that Adam and Eve are just bad or good or a mix of the two? Ultimately, I don't have the foggiest of a clue. So he says, in closing, we don't really know what continuing or closing the loop actually means. And it's hard for him to feel invested without knowing what they actually want. He said, to summarize that, help.
Well, I mean, that's I think that's pretty subjective, but for me, I think that you can really focus on, there's not an overall answer to that question, I guess, an overall simple answer to that question, obviously with a show like this, but I mean, each of the individuals have, you can go from Hannah and how her kind of motives have shifted for her throughout to this point, now realizing she doesn't need anybody, but before had always been attached to somebody else or something. But I mean, Katerina's journey, everybody's journey is so different and complicated, yet they're all connected together. And overall, what closing the loop or not closing the loop is, one wants everything to happen how it's always happened, and another wants to change things from how it's happened. So,
and I would imagine that what Adam and Eve, whether they're working together or working apart from each other, I think that what we are finding out with them is that they probably want the same thing. And they're it's kind of like they say, when you get really polarized in politics and you go really far to the right, you end up on the left, and you go really far to the left, you end up on the right. It's kind of the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out at the end that what Adam and Eve, even though they think they want 2 separate things, what they actually want is the same thing.
Yeah. Or they've swapped places in a way, one or the other. Kind of similar to how HG shows the paper rolled up and shows how the light in the passage comes all the way around back to itself.
Right, exactly. It's a loop. Yep. And I think, if you wanted to look at individual, you really could break down individuals, like you said, and what they want. But I think ultimately it boils down to love, like you've said a lot. And that's that characters are in love, either holding on to love with somebody or they're still in love with somebody. And
I mean, yeah, even what Colt says last episode, not every bond is formed in fondness. So it's not just love, it's hate.
Yeah, that's true. And we see some of these characters, we see Hannah and Ulrich, for example, that's love then to hate, or Katerina and her mother. And I think, a big thing, especially that we're dealing with in this season, and probably it's in other seasons as well, is the idea of loss and trying to bring somebody back from the dead. We've had that mentioned quite a bit in this show, that, we have Charlotte and HG having that conversation just in this episode about wanting to go back and change things and save somebody. So it's all characters dealing with grief and losing somebody as well.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not it's just not a show where it's well, you need to care because it's just a little more complex than that, I guess, and a little more macro, yet you can get really micro with it too, by breaking down to individual characters and the relationships, or get to the more macro overall, love and just feeling that your story and your people are exceptions to the rules of life. Or death.
Right. Which we definitely get that mentioned a lot, that, we are born and we die. And that's the only thing that we all share in common, is one of the opening lines of this show, of this episode.
And
so, I think it's something that'll be good to look at between episode 7 and episode 8 when we do that feedback show, because we're going to get more information about what people want, what people are trying to start or stop.
Yeah, and a lot of those feelings kind of are similar, not to get too dark with it on the Dark Podcast, but a lot of those feelings are feelings you have in your own life at certain points where you're is this all it is? Where is this all going? What is the point of all this? Did it really come to this for that? You get those feelings in your own life at certain points, and the characters are definitely getting those feelings at different points. So I think that's somewhat intentional. That's okay. It's not always a pleasant experience with this show, but it's a rewarding one nonetheless.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good segue into this actual episode, because I felt like this was the most tragic episode of Dark that I can remember.
And probably my favorite one. One of them.
Your favorite. Okay.
It's
I don't know
there.
if I have a favorite. I'd have to think if I have a favorite. There's been so many great moments in this show. I don't know if there's one episode in particular that I really, really like. Yeah, I know there was the one early on, the first time that we see the 3 timelines, and we have HG's machine breaking it up between the 50s, 80s, and 2019. I think that's up there for me. This one is really good. There are a lot of great reveals, but why is this your favorite? Is there anything in particular your favorite?
There's
besides
just
getting the payoff on your lake theory.
Yeah, well, which I'll get to that because I'm not sure if it's been paid off. But yeah, I'll get to that more. But I mean, obviously that was a big part of it. I just felt overall there's not been a ton of moments in this show that made my jaw drop. Mm-hmm. And I mean, maybe I'm being a basic bitch here, but that trailer scene is one of my favorite scenes from the show. It was just incredible.
Oh, the scene with Peter. When you said trailer scene, I thought you meant like the.
I've been waiting for Peter to like be a hero and I don't want to jump ahead too much, but that I just I have a weakness for like the irredeemable like characters who fuck up and then get a chance to redeem. I'll just go to Theon Greyjoy. He's one of my favorite characters of all time, and it was before everybody started liking him, the hipster Theon Greyjoy fan here. But like the reason I liked and it's just Peter reminds me a lot of Theon, right down to his like tragic end. Right. And so that whole scene was just, I mean, it really, for him to just be like simple, like as like the knife just went in his throat, like it was just a struggle, and then it just like slowly went in and it was done. Like it's like, wow.
And he knew, I mean, he had been told by Noah that he was going to die, and he was going to
exactly. And so for that to be his thought, and to still let it happen, knowing he had to let that happen.
Well, I don't know if let it happen.
Well, but he kind of does when you watch it back a few times. Like there's before it goes in, like he's accepted it's going to happen at least. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying he let it happen, but either way. So those are a couple of the reasons. The Jonas stuff I just think the Jonas and Martha conversation was really, really great.
Which one?
The one after, the one in front of the cave.
The one that echoes back to season 1. Yeah,
I really liked a lot of those things. There was a lot of echoing in places I wasn't expecting there to be. Like
there was a lot of echoes back to other episodes for sure. That was part of why I watched through some other episodes, because I wanted to rewatch some of the scenes where these lines have shown up or these themes have shown up. And that scene in front of the cave is definitely one. I mean, that's the exact same conversation they have outside of Jonas's house in the rain. Yeah. With Jonas saying that it's wrong and Martha saying it's not wrong and kissing him, like almost the exact same thing.
Yeah.
To the point where I actually wonder, so this takes place on November 6th, 2019 in the alternate world. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you looked at the date of the episode in season 1, was that also November 6th, 2019? I don't think so, because it was a couple episodes into the season, so I don't think it would have been November 6th, but it would be really something if that actually took place on the exact same day and time as it did in the Prime world.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But I think that season starts on November 7th is this episode. And I think that conversation between Jonas and Martha takes place a little bit later in the season than that, but I would have to go back and check, and I'm too afraid to Google that. So maybe we'll find out after the season if they paired that up.
But yeah, I mean, just overall, I'm just a sucker for big reveals and big moments, and just those two are two of the biggest moments in this show.
Yeah,
like
so good. I had a couple parts that I really liked. Obviously, the end, and we definitely need to talk about the very end before we get into the episode itself. But
talking about echoing,
and the other part that I really, really liked was the montage that we got in this episode. And when they show Ulrich looking at the clock and realizing Katerina's not going to show up, and the whole tragedy around that family and Katerina and what her ultimate fate is, and with her mother, and with that, her and Ulrich were so close to escaping, which you knew when they brought it up it was never going to happen. But it's just
so
like
good.
I tweeted this. I said I wish I knew more Shakespeare because there was just so much Shakespearean tragedy in this show, and I just don't know enough Shakespeare to really have the
Shakespeare. We need to take a Shakespeare course, a Bible course.
Yeah, we
There's
just
a
need
lot
we need a Shakespeare expert. We need a religion expert to help us with these things.
Yeah, and also just the Nielsen's are my favorite family. They really are, particularly Katerina and Ulrich.
Mhm.
Katerina, in just this episode alone, all of a sudden I look back at all of Katerina. I'm like, oh my god, she's awesome. Like I didn't realize how much I liked her till she was gone. This is like what
so you
this
realize what she came from.
Yeah, like this is like this like that scene just like made me reevaluate her entire character, and that's like the kind of stuff I love about when a show does that, a movie does that. I mean, Katerina went from a character like I'm sure if I go back and listen to us from season 1, we probably aren't talking that highly of Katerina. We're probably like she's kind of whatever. Like she likes, she likes Rickroll. That's her favorite song or whatever. What was that? Or whatever song it was. It was some basic ass song.
Yeah, it was like I've had the time of my life, maybe, or something like.
Or like We Are Family, maybe by
no,
Sister
it wasn't
Sledge.
that. I think it was from Flashdance or Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, I had to. But either way, like, and then this. Oh my god, you're just like rooting for her. You know it's not going to happen because she can't win that. But like.
Well, I did think maybe. So what I thought was going to happen, and we really haven't even gotten into the episode, but we will. We're going to see my scenes. But when she's talking to Ulrich and she says to him, like at 10 o'clock, I'm gonna get the key card. I know where my mom keeps it. She gets out at at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, and then I'll get the key card. I really actually thought that was what was going to happen, but I was expecting the opposite, where I was expecting Katerina was going to end up killing her mom. Trying to get this key card. So I thought Katerina was going to get the key card, and the cost that they're going to pay to get Ulrich out of there was that Katerina was going to lose her mother. Because I don't think we ever really knew if, we didn't know what the fate of Katerina and her mother was in the 2019 timeline.
But had she already had she already had Katerina by this point, obviously.
Yes, because Katerina's back at home, and Katerina sees her when she gets home.
Right. And she
young Katerina sees her.
Yeah.
But the way it worked out actually was so much better. It's, if I would have written this, I probably would have written that she kills her mother.
Yeah.
Gets the key card and gets Ulrich out.
And they really set you up to believe it since she's the one wearing the Christopher medal. And it's not till she gets it ripped off at the very end.
Right.
So it's like, the person wearing it is, I always said the person wearing is the, has a debt, basically the Grim Reaper's coming after you if you have that thing on.
At the end of this episode, Martha has the St. Christopher coin.
Yep.
So
she's next.
And we got to find out, want to find out how she got these scars. We got to find out how she got these scars on her eye, because she returns at the end of the episode and has a big scar on her eye.
Yep. Yeah, and I do have more to say about the lake, but we can.
Well, once we get into I think this is just kind of like there's so many overview things to talk about. It's hard to just jump into like in the first scene. We saw, I don't even know, what did we see in the first scene? We saw somebody burying a body in the rain.
I mean, so just based on this pre-discussion of the episode, I think this makes it the best one, just saying.
Yeah.
There's so much to talk about, and there's so much that was accomplished, and it was written by Giannis Frize's, long lost whoever, the one of the creators of the show. So John Che, or however you say. I don't know how you say that name.
Yeah.
So Janje. Well, you're gonna get emails.
Right. I'm gonna get emails.
So yeah, whoever he is, he wrote the show. So not Bardar Odar. So you're gonna get emails about that too. Yeah. So
and I have every other show I feel like I know the name of the showrunner, and I could Damon Lindelof or Sam Esmail, but for this it's like I think his name's Boron, but I haven't even looked it up, and I'm like afraid to Google anything with this show, so I just can't. But he makes amazing TV, and like you said, he's working on something else. You said for Netflix, so I'm excited to see what he comes up with.
Netflix has to have him in an exclusive deal.
He's so
They'd
smart.
be an idiot not to.
I was trying to remember how I started watching Dark, because the last episode we covered was called The Origin, and I was trying to think of my Dark origin story, and I wanted to bring this up on the podcast and just forgot. And I thought I probably heard about it on a podcast or heard people talking about it. I'm pretty sure what happened was I saw Sam Esmail tweet about how amazing this show was. Sam Esmail is the showrunner of Mr. Robot, and I really liked what he did with Mr. Robot. I thought it was super creative. And I've heard him on podcast interviews recommend other shows that he really likes. I'm pretty sure he's a big Lost fan as well. So I think that was why I originally checked out Dark. And I think separate from me in your alternate world, I think you just started watching Dark on Netflix.
Yeah, I just I stumbled across it and decided to just press play.
Good choice.
Yeah, I'm not a big spoiler fan or like trailer fan or knowing anything about things going in, which it's like, how do you find things? I have way too much time on my hand to be able to scroll through Netflix and just choose a show and just start watching it. And it was lucky.
Yeah.
So
you and I met right in the center, much like Jonas is at the center of.
Yeah, and I'm getting a little deja vu because I'm pretty sure you said on last podcast about the discoveries through Ismail, but it may have been just us.
I think it was after. I think it was after we stopped recording.
After
because I'd
Dark.
written down in my notes, I was like, "Oh, this episode's called The Origin. I'm going to tell my story of how my origin story with Dark." And
I guess it was just a glitch in the Matrix.
yes, exactly, glitch in the Matrix. All right, so the other big picture thing that we have not yet talked about that I think we need to before we get into breakdown is, and have a breakdown, is so Jonas dies in the alternate world at the end of this episode.
Yes.
And a great kind of repeating of the cycle with Martha killing Jonas this time when we saw Adam killing Martha in the Prime world.
Mm-hmm.
But how is this possible? How can Jonas die in this alternate world and then the stranger is still alive, an older version of Jonas, along with Adam in the Prime world?
My copy theory.
So when they traveled to the alternate world, there was a copy of Jonas created?
Mm-hmm. Or left, yeah.
And this copy of Jonas is just hanging out somewhere. We don't know where yet.
May either left in probably left in the alternate world or put into a third world where all the copies go.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because we didn't see him. Well, okay, so that is actually interesting because when we see Elizabeth and Peter go into Jonas's house in 2020 after the explosion, we don't see Martha's body there.
Nope.
So Martha's body is gone, and potentially, if Jonas was left there, his body, if they created a copy that goes to the alternate world, maybe that version of the other version of Jonas stayed in the Prime world and took Martha's body and buried her or something. Mm-hmm. I guess that definitely could make sense. My thought on this, and I don't know if it would work, I do not think we have enough time for this, is we've seen a world where Jonas doesn't exist. We've seen a world where Jonas and Martha both exist. Wouldn't it really make sense, especially with how many times we have the number 3, if there's a world where Martha doesn't exist?
Yeah.
And that the stranger / Adam is actually Jonas from the world where Martha doesn't exist?
And that's why he doesn't have any connection to.
Well, he did know her when the stranger knew her, but he could have known her from, the time he visited Winden before the event, when he's like staying with Hannah and like going around Winden. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it quite works out, but it does seem weird that we would have a world with both Martha and Jonas and then a world without Jonas, but we don't have anything where there's a world without Martha.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Sigmundes logo, there are 3 ends to the Sigmundes logo. Mm-hmm. And we've had the number 3 so much. So it does feel like there could be like an opportunity for a third universe here.
Yeah, I think that may be the final type of reveal.
That we have a world without Martha?
Yeah, maybe, but I just don't know how it will work. So.
I don't know how it would work, and I don't know how they would tell that in 3 hours with everything else we have to tell.
I don't either.
Yeah, but it does seem like the fact that Jonas dies is the reason why the stranger doesn't remember Martha. Mm-hmm. But Adam seems to know who she is, although Adam said it took him 66 years to figure everything out. So maybe it's as simple as like they, if we're going with Bible references, maybe Jonas is Jesus and Jonas gets resurrected. And part of his resurrection is he can't remember anything.
Bringing back the dead.
Yeah. I don't know how that would work, but, he
back
dies
to
right
where
in the middle of everything.
Well, you go back to when they're still alive, like Charlotte says. And Jonas, I think, even says that to Charlotte when he first comes back to the past, when he first sees Charlotte the first time Jonas goes back to the 80s. Mm-hmm. He sees Charlotte looking at the birds, and she asks about bringing him back to the dead. And he says you would have to go back to when they were alive.
So somehow Jonas' body goes back to... So maybe we open the next episode with a Jonas like waking up out of a nightmare.
Yep.
And having this and this actually did happen, but somehow he travels back.
Gets himself from when he was still alive.
As resurrected but doesn't have the memories, and so it takes 66 years for Adam to remember what happened.
Yep.
And that I mean, we have so much biblical imagery and biblical names that it would make sense if there is like some sort of Jesus. I mean, Jesus returned 3 days later, I believe. So maybe 3 episodes. I mean, right now that was episode 5. So 3 episodes later would be episode 8. So maybe that's what we're going to get in the finale.
Yeah.
Is Jonas's resurrection.
I don't think that's a bad theory.
Yeah. That would tie a lot of things together. But we have to set up a lot for that to happen. So let us know. Are you on Team Clone or on Team Resurrection? Just let us know. All right. So shall we get into the actual episode itself?
Yeah. Right.
I think, well, at least like some of this stuff we won't have to take as long with because we've already talked about it up front.
Yeah.
All right. So we start with somebody burying a body in the rain. We can't see who that was. You can kind of tell it's a woman based on the sounds that she's making. It does sound like a woman. My prediction or my thought was that it's Martha, which actually kind of comes full circle. It's not Martha who's burying the body, but we could have at the end of this episode seen Martha burying a body.
Oh, so you thought that was Martha being buried?
No, I thought that was Martha burying possibly Jonas.
Okay.
But I mean, that lasted about 10 seconds before I realized who it was.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. No, then we realized that's Claudia burying Regina.
Yeah.
And we have an old woman's voice. This old woman's voice is not credited to anybody but old woman. So I don't think it's safe to assume that that's Eve talking. It didn't sound like Eve also.
No, they've identified her before.
Right. So we don't know who this is. It also didn't sound like old Claudia to me. So what character, as an old version of the character, do we not have a voice to identify with? But that seems like that is still an open mystery for us. And the voice is saying, why do we die? Could we escape it if we expect it? Fate is predetermined. Dying is predetermined. Fate is predetermined, or life is predetermined, and dying is predetermined. And it said, we all have one thing in common. We are born and we die. And then we see that this grave is Regina's. And Claudia is burying her daughter, who Trante killed a couple episodes ago. And then we see some split screens. We see Elizabeth. We see Peter. We see the coin. And then we see Katerina as well. Then in 2053, so we're in the future of the Prime, Adam is talking to Charlotte, and they're out in the snow. And he's telling Charlotte, your path has always led you to Elizabeth and to me. One more day and we can unravel this knot. So there's something that's going to happen the next episode. And says, will you do your part? Adam says, Eve will never get her way. Her world isn't worthy of salvation. So do you have any predictions on what Charlotte is going to be sent to do?
I don't really. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts?
So I wrote here that I think she's going to be sent back to kill HG.
Okay.
But by the end of the episode, I'm more thinking that her and Elizabeth are going to take baby Charlotte to HG.
So she delivers herself to HG?
Because HG later in the episode says that 2 strange women brought the baby to him. So we can talk about that when we get to the HG stuff. There's a ton to break down there, but Charlotte is definitely, her and Elizabeth are going to be sent somewhere to do something. And it's obviously very big. And it's interesting to see Adam working with Charlotte now.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that before.
Yeah, that was not who I was expecting to be there. So.
Yeah. And it makes sense. I mean, I think it's interesting to think about too, like how long has Adam been in 2053? Did he just come there at the end of the last finale and he's been there for 3 months, or has he been doing things there prior to that? Was he working with Elizabeth before this, or is this all kind of a new thing where he's working with all these people in the future? So then we go to the alternate 2019. Jonas wakes up. We see one day to the apocalypse come up on the screen. So this is one day to the alternate world apocalypse. We still don't know how that's going to happen. He sees Martha in all white. From some of my watching of old episodes between watching this and recording, it does look like that version of Martha that's in all white is the same version that Jonas has sex with in season 2 when he goes back to the day that Michael kills himself, when him and Martha are together in her room during the party.
Yeah.
Wearing that all white dress, and that's what he sees her in.
Yep.
And I also was wrong on the last episode when I said that the last time that Jonas and Martha had sex in the last episode was the first time. It was actually the second time they had sex that night, which was the night of the party, the day that they were at the lake together as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we just weren't sure.
Right. Yeah, we just couldn't remember. If after watching this episode, if there's an episode to go back to, I would say that one has a lot of stuff that ties into this episode. That's season 2, episode 6, titled "An Endless Cycle." And I mean, all episodes of Dark have lots of rewatchability, especially knowing where things are going. But that one has a whole lot with everything at the lake, and then the way things are between Martha and Jonas, and then the stranger coming back to stop Michael as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or sorry, not the stranger, time traveling Jonas. But that is actually just a dream. The Martha in all white. He then wakes up and realizes that he's next to the alternate Martha. I think that version of Martha in all white was like, she had the original haircut too. So I think after watching this episode, it's meant to make us realize that, what Jonas wants is not alternate world Martha. What Jonas wants is his old life with original Martha back.
Yeah, this is not Martha, like the stranger said earlier.
Yep. It's it looks like Martha, and it is a version of Martha, but it's not the Martha that Jonas loves.
Yeah, which is like a similar thing brought up in a lot of like clone sci-fi, when there's like a clone of like a loved one.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be like, it looks like you, it feels like you, but it's not you.
Like that Black Mirror episode. Is it Be Right Back? Was the
Be
Black
Right
Mirror?
Back.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was thinking The Sixth Day as well when you were talking about that with the Arnold.
Yeah, so another fine choice.
So they wake up. I noted that alternate Martha is laying on her yellow pillow, and Jonas says, "Let's go to the power plant. We don't have much time." They come downstairs, and Katerina says that she's been worried. So apparently I was right. The parents were worried, and they were looking for Martha. She said Martha has been missing for an entire day, and she had no idea where she was. And Katerina, of course, in the Prime world, loses a child to disappearing in a time portal. And so this is a nice parallel of that. Instead of Mikkel disappearing and going to the past, Martha disappeared thanks to Jonas taking her, just like Mikkel. Martha disappeared and went to the future.
Mm-hmm.
And Katerina is saying, "Who is he?" Which is a very normal question to ask, because who is this random guy walking out of your bedroom this morning?
Yeah.
And Martha just gives her mom a big hug, clearly like a, we are never going to see each other type thing. Or at least this version of each other we're never going to see again.
Mm-hmm. I think she says it's all right or something.
Yeah, I think she says everything is all right, I believe.
Yeah.
Or everything will be all right, maybe.
Yeah. I don't think she said everything, but either way.
Okay. I thought, I usually note that, and I didn't note it here. So maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was a different scene, or maybe I just didn't note it.
Mm-hmm.
So then in 1987, in the Prime world, we see Katerina, and she's sitting with Ulrich. She says, everything's going to be okay. Well, maybe she shouldn't say everything's going to be okay, but she says she's going to break him out at 10 p.m. And she says, I'm going to use my mother's key card. I'm going to get you out. We're going to get Mikkel, and we're all going to go back. And silly Katerina, you might be able to get Ulrich. There's no way you're bringing Mikkel back. It's just not happening. It's just not the way it's going to work. And Ulrich apologizes to her and says, I apologize for everything.
Yep.
So, but, at this point, it's like, oh, this is, I like that they're trying. We don't know what happens to Ulrich. We have no idea about Ulrich's future beyond this. So he could still escape. This is still possible at this point. But you just know that this is going to lead to some kind of confrontation. And this is where I wrote down, like, oh, she's going to end up killing her mother, either like to get the key card, or my first guess was like during the escape, the mother is going to get killed. And, Katerina is going to have caused something that is going to be the source of so much pain for her in her life.
Yeah. No, I mean, that definitely was my thoughts the first time through. I kind of got confused, like jumbled around, but like, yeah, it was just, she had the death metal on her and just everything like that. And like how this was setting up, it was like, I thought it was setting up to where Katerina was going to be trapped in the same mental hospital as Ulrich.
Oh,
so
yeah.
they were going to end up, so they were going to, that was my like hope for a happy ending, I guess, was that they were going to end up trapped together. But nope, not even that for Katerina.
Nope. So yeah, we'll see more of that later on. Then finally, we get the return of HG in this episode. It has been a while.
Yeah, seriously.
Probably almost an entire season since we've seen him. So he's listening to the radio. It is now 1 year after Chernobyl, is what they're saying, is what the guy on the radio says. And they've increased nuclear safety. We're just getting a little context, I feel like, around nuclear power from this radio broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlotte walks in, and she asks HG if it's possible to rewind time.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have a little bit of discussion about time, and HG says, "You're adult enough now to know." And I thought maybe he was going to pull out the machine and show her. And he says, "For a while, I've wanted to turn back time, and then I realized my place isn't in the past or in the future," which I thought was an interesting way to phrase it. Because I feel like HG is going to end up traveling somewhere, unless he gets killed by Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And what he shows her is he shows her a photograph of a couple with a baby in a carriage. And she asks if this is her parents and her. And HG explains, no, this is his son and his son's wife and their baby. And he says that the night that they died in a car accident, 2 women arrived that looked kind of like, he said, like strange looking women arrived with a bundle, and that bundle was you. Everything was taken, and I'd be given everything. So he takes the baby, and then he learns that night that a truck forced his son and his wife off the bridge. The bodies of the son and the wife were recovered, but the baby was never found. And of course, the bridge is I'm assuming that's the same bridge that we've seen a bunch of times in the bridge that goes over the lake.
Yeah.
And so the day that the baby was missing, Charlotte showed up, and the pocket watch was the only thing brought with her. Mm-hmm. And Charlotte says, "Who am I and who are my parents?"
Yeah, we still don't know the origin of the pocket watch.
No, the pocket watch is another one that, like, some of these items, it makes me kind of like just my mind spin when I try to think about like where these things come from. Of course, we saw the pocket watch with Old Man Tannhaus in the carriage. I think that's the most new version of that pocket watch, but we don't know where he got that or who that guy even was. Mm-hmm. So, I talked about earlier that I thought these 2 strange women that show up are going to be Charlotte and Elizabeth that are going to bring baby Charlotte. Mm-hmm. But we don't know where baby Charlotte is going to come from.
Yeah.
So we know that baby Charlotte's parents are Elizabeth and Noah. And it didn't look like HG's son and his wife were Elizabeth and Noah to me. So, do you think that we are going to find out who HG's son was, or do you think we should just not worry about that?
I think we're going to find out.
And do you have any theories on who HG's son and wife and baby are?
Nope.
Sorry. Because that baby disappeared, so that baby has to turn up to be somebody.
Enos? I don't know. I have no idea.
Well,
Enos's baby, I'm still wondering about.
Right. Yeah, it does remind me of Enos's baby. I am now starting to think that Enos's baby, like we've had so many babies that are taken away from their parents, I'm kind of starting to think Enos's baby was just a red herring.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, I think that whoever this baby is, and I think we need to see this scene as well. Mm-hmm. And, I'm wondering if the truck that pushes HG's son and wife off the road is going to be driven by Elizabeth and Charlotte. And maybe that's what they're going back to do. And then they're also going to bring the baby to HG for some reason. Mm-hmm. But it didn't look like there was any weird time stuff with that picture. That picture looked like it was taken in the late 70s, which would, align with the age of Charlotte, I would think, or the early 70s, I guess, would align with the age of Charlotte. So I don't think that's that was a picture from the future or from way back in the past or anything like that.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering if Charlotte does end up killing HG, what she's going to be preventing HG from doing when she kills him without realizing it.
Right. And
something probably to do with saving Charlotte or Elizabeth, I would think.
Could be. Yeah, it probably will be another example of her
like Egon
going back to prevent something, but she's actually causing it.
Yeah, and similar to like Egon and Claudia being the cause of Egon's death.
I did think that HG's son looked a little bit like Magnus. Not a ton, but a little bit like Magnus. And you've always said you didn't think Magnus looked like he was related to Ulrich and Katerina. Mm-hmm. So, we do know that Mikkel and Martha are both pretty special in this timeline, but Magnus really doesn't have much of a role. Mm-hmm. So could it be that Magnus was actually HG's grandson and was given to Ulrich and Katerina. That's something I'm watching as well. I'm watching Magnus.
Yeah, I'm curious. Magnus has to have some final reveal. Francesca, I'm curious about too. So
Yeah, we've barely seen Francisca in this season.
She was holding open the
right. Yes.
door for it.
Yes,
Agnes
we do.
And,
Yes, exactly. But that's about it. That's about all we've seen her do. That and have sex in the bunker in the alternate world.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. All right. So we're on HG watch. I think it's good to have him back. They aren't introducing him without him gonna be playing a role in the last couple episodes of the season. Then we have in the alternate world, we have Charlotte, alternate Charlotte. She's looking at the bag on Alexander's desk, which is the one that Hannah brought him. You'd think if that bag was like blackmailing him, he wouldn't just leave it sitting out.
Yeah.
But,
it's very careless.
Yeah. And he's talking about how they're planning the demolition for the power plant in a year. He said, I never imagined it would go on like this, but everything has its time, is what he says.
Yep.
And Charlotte is asking him about when he arrived in Winden. And he said it was the fall of 1986, and then shortly thereafter he started working at the power plant. And Charlotte says she'd like to see the schedules from 1986, the night Mads disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just kind of mirroring what we saw Ulrich doing in the first season.
Yep.
And what we've seen Egon as well, investigating. Claudia, you go from that to the police station in 2020 of the Prime world. Claudia is in the police station. She hears a noise, and so she turns off her flashlight, and she walks in to be confronted with her alternate self, a much more put together version of her from the alternate world.
Did it look like neither of these had the Claudia eyes?
I was not even paying attention to their eyes.
They both looked like they didn't have heterochromia, or whatever it's called. They both looked like they just had normal eyes.
Did one have one color and one have the other color?
I was trying to look for that. If anything, it looked like Prime, the alternate one put together, had darker eyes.
Okay. Yeah, because I
wonder.
wonder.
Was also in the shadows. So
yeah, I just wonder. I wasn't paying attention to their eyes at all. I wonder if maybe if one has blue eyes and one has brown eyes, do they somehow merge to become one version of Claudia?
That's what I was thinking or wondering. Maybe it's a result of traveling between the worlds, or
like if they travel, like the Fly, if they travel through worlds together and they're the same person, do they merge? That actually, I really like that theory.
So
it does seem like traveling between worlds switches things, like scars.
Yeah.
So it does have some physical effect if you travel between the worlds. I wonder if you travel through the world with yourself at the same age, that is a great observation.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have to watch that. Is this the first person to interact with their alternate self? I can't think of anybody else who did.
Martha ever?
So Martha shows up when her Prime self is dead already, and there is no alternate version of Jonas that we know about. Yeah, I think that this is the first. Yeah. So again, much like HG showing back up, it's good to have Claudia kind of, we've had a little bit less of the middle-aged version of Claudia in this season. So it's really good to get that back.
Yep.
So yeah, and we're going to see more of their conversation. But one of the things that alternate world Claudia says to Prime Claudia is that they'll see each other again soon. So this isn't the last time that they're going to meet. All right, then we get to we see Elizabeth and Peter. They're exiting the trailer, and on the rewatch, this whole scene is very tragic to watch. One of the many very tragic things. So Elizabeth is looking at the pocket watch that we saw earlier, also, and Peter. They are going to the dead zone again. Peter is still trying to find Charlotte, and Elizabeth has had enough. She says they're dead. Everyone here is dead. We're wasting our time. And it's interesting. She says everyone here is dead, since in the future Elizabeth will call that area the dead zone. And Elizabeth leaves, and when Elizabeth leaves, I'm just like, no, Peter, go and stop her, especially on the rewatch, knowing what's going to happen, because of course she's going to go back to the trailer all by herself, which is going to lead to Peter's death.
Yep.
Right from there, we go right back to this Claudia scene. I had to watch this one a couple times, and alternate Claudia says that she's here to guide you into the light. She says that there are two sides fighting for the superiority of time travel. But she tells Prime Claudia, you can't trust Jonas. She's trying to recruit her to Eve's side. And Jonas wants to destroy both worlds, but it will just lead to death. She says Eve will save the world. And Prime Claudia says it's a positive feedback loop. Like what she told Jonas is what Jonas will tell her, and going back and forth, that bootstrap paradox.
Yep. I never believe characters when they say they're fighting for the light. I always
you get it a
they're
lot in this.
Yeah, I believe none of them.
Mhm.
I believe they all believe it, maybe. Well,
I'm so in on these two Claudias merged together theory. That's all I can think about when I'm talking about this scene now. Is that they're?
I mean, they show the eyes. They're not. The eyes are not different.
That's how they're gonna. That's how they're gonna end up working. She's trying to recruit her to the side because they're gonna merge and then just be on the Eve side. Yeah, it makes so much sense. So, what alternate world? While they're still split, what alternate world Claudia says is that in 2020, when the passage is open, 2019 when the passage is closed, and 1986 when the passage is originally opened, they all left behind cesium residue, which is the residue that creates the black matter. And this was kind of a weird phrase. So Prime Claudia says half-lives, which it's not really a half-life. Half-life is like how long it takes a nuclear element to decay in half. So I don't really get what it's.
But she brings that up, how the residue over time is
decaying, right? But because the residue goes through these time tunnels, it never decays, and it just expands. It's something that, like, as they were talking about this, I was like, how are we going to explain this on a podcast? So I think some of it
they're kind of half-lives.
Well, if you think of the two of them merging, they are each half a life, and they're going to merge into a full life.
And they're probably not the only ones this has happened to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's so crazy. And I wonder if we're going to see other characters merging with their alternate selves and picking, maybe Magnus and Francisca merge with their alternate selves. And that's, Francisca in the alternate world can't talk, and she really hasn't talked much in this. I don't know. Now I'm going down this total rabbit hole with the merging of half-lives.
Yeah.
And so then alternate Claudia, I need to stay on focus though. Alternate Claudia says that the black matter has to go through the tunnel. The barrels have to be opened. Everything has to happen the way it always has, life and death. So that will be something to watch. Now is what happens between Claudia and Claudia. Of course,
doesn't that sound exactly like Adam? Everything has to happen how it always has.
Yeah, we hear so many people who say that, but yes, it does sound like Adam. It also sounds like what old Claudia says as well. So then we've got alternate Martha and Jonas. They are going through into the power plant to try to prevent whatever is going to happen. And Jonas mentions, actually, just like Claudia did in the last scene, a disaster in the summer of 1986 is what led to the material in the barrels. We have not seen the disaster in 1986.
Yeah.
We aren't in 1986 in the Prime world at all, but I am curious if we're going to see that. And it would make sense that we would see what this disaster was in 1986. Could it be that? So no, it wouldn't, because I was going to say, could it be that whatever happens in the alternate world in 2019, 33 years before that is 1986, but that's in the fall. That's not in the summer of 1986.
Yeah.
But I do think that we need to see, this is two references to the summer of 1986, right back to back. I think we need to see whatever happened in 86. But Jonas says that the truck is going to be coming with those barrels. And as they're going through the fence, Martha cuts her face on the fence, which is the scar that we've seen alternate Martha having throughout this season. So it's right below her eye. It's that horizontal scar.
Yep.
This is not the big scar that's on Martha's face. That's a different scar on the other side of the face. This one is just a small scar under her eye. But did you notice that in this world, that scar under her eye is on the other side?
Yeah. Definitely.
So once again, we're having a scar that's switching sides, just like we have with the Seed / 3 Ninjas.
Yep.
Which we do not see them at all in this episode. Also, I just realized.
No, we heard a couple of metallic beats, I think. I'm pretty sure.
I do think I remember seeing that. Yeah. But yeah, so clearly scars switch. So I think the idea that there are two versions of that 3 Ninjas is probably not right. It's probably that somehow when you transfer between alternate world and prime world, there is a flipping of some of these facial scars and maybe other scars as well.
Yeah.
And this is when Jonas, when he sees that cut, he realizes that this is the Martha, because she had a fresh cut when she came back to save him. And so he realizes that this is the Martha that, you know, had just shortly after this is going to be sent back in time to save him.
Yep.
So he realizes that the Martha who came to save him from the prime world was really not that much more informed than the one he's already working with.
Yeah.
So this is like what clues him in that they aren't supposed to be doing what they're doing.
Yep.
Of course, stupid Jonas, he is supposed to be doing what they're doing. And had they done that, by trying to prevent it, he said, you know, we're going to go talk to Eve and we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to get the truth. Of course, that is what actually causes not only his death, but everything that always happened to happen.
He's tired of doing things that other people tell him to do.
Right.
This is the time.
Yes. And of course,
it's the friend who is a pushover all the time and then finally chooses the stupidest hill to stand on.
Yeah. Basically, yes.
That's Jonas.
Yeah. I mean, Jonas just in general, like we're 3 seasons into this and he's still, to steal a word from Eve, he is still naive.
Naive.
Yeah. Oh, yes, naive. Yes, very true. Naiva. And I even put in my notes, in my like parentheses predictions, Jonas leaves to go see Eve, and I said, of course, this is going to cause something because it has to. So I wonder what would have happened if Jonas and Martha would have kept going and got the barrels. I mean, they never were going to. They never did.
Never did. That's just asking a completely, useless, irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. So, so Martha follows him out of the fence. I guess there's no security at the power plant. Nobody seems to notice that they're there.
Yeah, also sneaking into a place with a bright yellow jacket on. That's just grade A thievery.
Yeah. Well, it's
a barrel. Never mind. It's a person.
Exactly. Yeah, it allows her to be camouflaged with the barrels. Yeah. Very true.
She just has to hold still.
And then we go back to 1986 in the Prime world. We see Charlotte sitting at everybody's favorite bus stop.
Yeah,
and
best bus stop.
For the first time ever, a bus pulls up to that bus stop. And somebody gets out, and it turns out that it's young Peter. And he's getting off the bus, and he asks Charlotte which way is Winden, and Charlotte says Winden is like a black hole. When you arrive, you can never get out of it. Charlotte has no idea how right she is about that. Mm-hmm. And they start talking, and Peter says everything is complicated. So Peter is recently coming to Winden because Peter's coming to Winden because his mother recently died. But before she died, she told him his father lived there. And he didn't know who his father was. And then they start talking, and Charlotte asks him about if you could save someone from dying, you would have to get to know them before they die. Or you'd have to get to them before they die. So as you pointed out, that's what Jonas said to her. Yeah, so I didn't put that together. So this idea came from Jonas. Mm-hmm. So this is a great scene between, we're finally getting Peter's origin in Winden, and we're getting a lot more information about Peter right before something bad is about to happen to Peter.
Yep.
33 years before. And I guess it's 1987, not 1986. So, a couple things here. The first is that Peter's mother, I don't know if Peter's mother is important. We know that she died. But the fact that he says he came there because she said his father is from there. And, it seems like he has the last name Doppler. But do you think he's actually Helge Doppler's son?
No.
It never has made sense that he's Helge Doppler's son.
No, shit. That was what he was told.
Yeah. So do you think that he is the son of a Doppler at all?
What do you have in mind?
Well, I was thinking either like his mother and him time traveled in some way, and he's the son of, maybe Bernd was his father.
Okay.
Or maybe he's from the future and he's, I don't know, like, I guess there's not very many other Dopplers really.
No, and he wasn't Innes's kid.
No, I was thinking maybe he could be his own father somehow, but I think we would have seen that.
Yeah.
I
think we'll find out who the mother is.
What if his mother's Greta? What if Greta, when she leaves Bernd, what if Greta gets pregnant again and leaves Bernd, and then her son is Peter?
Well, they haven't shown any signs of that yet.
That's true. Yeah, I just think like he goes back and the only Doppler who's in town is Helge, so he just assumes because he goes to the cabin at the end of the episode and it says Doppler, and I think he just assumes that that's his father is Helge, but it just doesn't seem like Helge is with it enough to create a baby.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely more coming about Peter for sure. I think you predicted this would be a big Peter episode, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
this one that we're watching now. I think in our last podcast you said this the next one's gonna be a big Peter episode.
Yeah.
Unless that was 2 ago. Everything is mixed up in my brain.
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah. All right. Anything else from this? You know, I thought the actor who plays young Peter looks exactly like older Peter. This was one of the best casting jobs they've had.
Yeah, they've cast this great. The bus driver says, "Are you waiting for an invitation to Charlotte?" But I don't think that was anything like a super.
No, it's my alarm bells always go off when we have a character who isn't connected to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And this bus driver, I mean, I guess he's just like a random guy, but could that bus driver have been somebody? Like, I don't know.
I don't think so, but I don't know. Like,
could it be like Obendorf's father, maybe, or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But,
probably not. Probably just some random bus driver. It's just weird they really do not show anybody in this show who's not connected to somebody. Or very rarely do they show somebody. So, yeah. Stay on the lookout. Maybe we'll find out more about the bus driver. All right. So, in alternate 2019, we see Elizabeth on the couch. And this is in the alternate world. So, Charlotte comes in. She says that she got the schedule from the day Mads disappeared. Helge was working until 6 o'clock, and Mads disappeared at 6:21. And she's arguing with Peter about it. They go in the other room, and Peter says to Charlotte, she's not deaf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got that.
Yeah. So it was probably just like probably just like another wink at the audience that, she is deaf in the Prime. But I don't think that, I mean, could it be that like Peter is connected with the Prime world and Peter knows that in the Prime world she's deaf?
I think it was just a little line.
Yeah. Just a cute line. So, and then Peter and Charlotte says it's just like Ulrich suspected, and Peter does not like that she brought up Ulrich, obviously because she's having an affair with Ulrich.
Right.
Or was, till he ended things. Then we go to 2020 in the Prime world. Elizabeth is in the trailer. This was the scene you were talking about. Very tragic scene. So Elizabeth gets to the trailer, but there's some random man in the trailer. He knocks her out by bashing her head against the door of the trailer. Mm-hmm. When she when she wakes up, she's tied up, and the man is making beans or soup. And he starts eating it. He says it's the first warm meal he's had in a very long time. The man decides he is going to try to rape Elizabeth, and he tries to give her food, but then he tries to have sex with her. Kind of actually, like Hannah in the last episode, she said, all you men are the same. You try to eat and F whatever you want. And that's exactly what this guy tries to do to Elizabeth.
Yeah. Yeah. He looked like the stranger.
Oh, like you thought so? See, I didn't feel like I was trying to figure out if he looked like anybody, if we were supposed to know who this guy was. He kind of looked like Obendorf to me.
He looked like the stranger to me, but I know it wasn't. But like,
could it be an older version of some character, maybe like a stranger version of somebody else? I don't know who it would be. Bartos, maybe?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it's anybody.
Yeah,
I don't think it's anybody.
I guess it couldn't be because he gets killed. So whoever it is, it's somebody we know they don't have a future.
I think it's just a random person.
Yeah. So right when he tries to do that, Peter walks in. It looked like Peter might have been carrying something. I couldn't really tell. Mm-hmm. And I wrote down right when Peter walked in, I said, this is where Peter dies. I don't think that was really going on a limb predicting that. No. I think most people know that. Elizabeth looks at the knife, and that was like a Chekhov's gun. Like that, as soon as Elizabeth looked at the knife, I was like, okay, that's how Peter's going to die, is from that knife.
Yep.
She uses the knife to untie herself, to cut the ropes that are tying her. And at this point, I thought that she was going to try to stop the guy, and she was going to be the one to kill Peter. Like, not intentional. I thought she was going to try to stop the guy, and she was going to stab Peter and kill him.
Yeah. Again, if you were writing the show, that's how it would be done.
Right. Yeah, because that's the way it is in, like, most shows. But on this show, a lot of times the characters are responsible for things they're trying to prevent. And she's trying to prevent Peter from being killed. And in a way, she is responsible because her knife, she drops it because she gets hit again. And then the random the random vagrant guy who's in there, grabs the knife. At first, he tries to stab Peter. Peter actually successfully blocks him first, but then he knocks him into another room in the trailer and ends up being able to push the knife into Peter's throat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like this inevitable tragedy.
Right, and this is what Noah brought up. Noah told Peter that after Peter died, Noah was going to take care of Elizabeth.
Yep, you'll protect her until your death, and then I will.
Until you're killed.
Yeah.
And nice job on the show by not having Noah be the one to kill Peter, because they did, that you could definitely read that scene that he was threatening Peter there.
Yep.
Probably how Peter read it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking too about the history of this trailer. This was Bernadette's trailer. So Peter, this is the place where Peter was cheating on Charlotte with Bernadette.
Yep.
And this is the place where he dies and where this really tragic event for Elizabeth happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so before the scene ends, Elizabeth picks up a giant fire extinguisher and just bludgeons the crap out of this guy for killing her father. Yep. Really, and you can tell this is when Elizabeth changes from young child Elizabeth to the Elizabeth that we see in 2053, the older, more militant version.
Yeah, and they say there's certain moments in your life that change you. I think in the show earlier, they make a line, something along those lines, that there's just certain moments from the past that you can never forget and never change you. That's definitely one of those for Elizabeth.
Yep. So then Elizabeth, we see in 2053, we see a really nice moment between Elizabeth, Francisca, and Charlotte all giving each other a hug. So like the three women of this family, each giving each other a hug before two of the women are going to go time travel. We saw this in the last episode between Agnes and Scarface / Celia. So now we're seeing it with this family. It really does feel like this is like characters saying goodbye to each other forever.
And it was like there was like a reference to Francesca making the move to cut people from her life or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Adam says you have to let her go, which I thought was a weird way to phrase it. And maybe that was just the translation, but you have to let her go is just one person. And this is two people leaving. Mm-hmm. This is both Elizabeth and Charlotte leaving.
I thought it was in reference to Elizabeth, but.
Yeah, but wouldn't Francisca also have to let her mom go? I mean, what's the difference?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, I guess in a weird way, if you think about the fact that Elizabeth is both Charlotte's mother and grandmother, they sort of are the same person. And we know Charlotte and Elizabeth are not the same person, but it might have just been the translation, but it definitely was weird to not say you have to let them go. You have to let her go.
Maybe this isn't the last you'll see of Charlotte.
Could be. It might be just one of the characters that she's letting go. That could be what it is. So in the alternate world, in 2020, alternate Claudia gives Prime Claudia the book. She says, you must lead them, Jonas, Noah, and Elizabeth. Lead them along the same path. You must maintain your path. You have to lead Jonas and then later defy him. Mm-hmm. So I guess, if the idea that Jonas wakes up without all of these memories, could he maybe wake up in the next episode in 2020 and the 2020 version of Elizabeth, Noah, and Jonas are all going to be led by Claudia with all of this knowledge? Mm-hmm. It seems like that could be what happens.
Yeah, Claudia definitely, it seems, possessed the most knowledge in these last few episodes.
So, all right, then alternate 2019, Jonas is outside the caves. Martha says to him, what if it's the truth and we're the only ones who can save one of the worlds? And she realizes that Jonas has always just wanted to return to his original world. Mm-hmm. Jonas says, I didn't want any of this. This is wrong here. I am wrong here. Again, very much echoing the scene from season 1. Martha kisses him and is trying to convince him that they are not wrong, just like Martha did in season 1.
Yep.
Martha walks into the cave. I thought it was interesting. Martha was the first one to go into the cave, not Jonas. Jonas was originally the one who was going into the cave to find Eve, but Martha walks in there first.
Yeah, I didn't notice that, but it was interesting.
In 1987, Helene walks home, and Katerina is behind her in the woods. I thought it was weird that Helene is walking through the woods to get home.
Yeah, I guess that was the route she always took. She always went the same way home. Mm-hmm. That's what Katerina said.
Yeah, I guess maybe she doesn't drive to work, and just seems like this is not the way you'd want to go. especially in a town where people keep disappearing.
Mhm.
And Katerina is trying to get the key card from her mother. She says, give me the key card. She tries to grab her purse, and Katerina exclaims, "Mama, let me go."
Mhm.
And Katerina starts chasing her. And I just wrote, she's going to die. I think at this point I still thought Helene was going to die, not Katerina. Katerina also, much like characters earlier in the episode, Katerina loses the knife.
Mhm.
And they are fighting down by the lake. Katerina hits Helene with the rock to kind of knock her out temporarily, and opens up her purse and sees that the key card is no longer there.
Yep.
So do you think she just had wrong information? I don't quite get this part. Like, was something changed, or did she never have the key card?
Yeah, I mean, she did. Maybe it was just that she didn't know her mom as well as she thought. Maybe
Yeah,
she leaves the key card at work,
because she found like the black holster where the key card should
Right.
be, and that was empty.
but it was empty. Yeah,
Right.
or it was just a way to maybe hold her up so that it would eventually lead to her getting killed there.
What do you mean?
Katerina, I'm saying, because Katerina is because she's looking for the key card, and that's what like delays and that allows Helene to stand up and then hit her and kill her.
Yeah,
So-
I just wasn't sure where the key card went, like in general.
It just wasn't meant to be there.
Mhm.
Yes. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure though.
So Katerina rips off Helene's necklace, and she has the necklace in her hand, and she is killed by Helene, hitting the rocks into Katerina's face and bashing her face in and killing her.
Yeah, a little bit of like a flip on the Helge Ulrich, but this time the woman's successful.
Right. And yeah, it's like the opposite too, because before when Katerina hits Helene with the rock the first time, she's the time traveler hitting the person who's from there with the rock, but doesn't kill her. But then the person who's from there does kill the time traveler.
Yeah, exactly.
So I also thought, especially on the second watch, the things that Helene is yelling at Katerina, and she's yelling about how you're the devil, you're not my daughter, you came from hell, combined with what we saw from Helene in the last episode. At first I thought Helene realized that this was Katerina. I no longer think that. I think that she thought that this was one of the babies that she aborted coming back to haunt her.
Yeah, exactly. It's planted in those. That's exactly what I thought. I thought this was kind of weird, and I haven't been able to go back and completely confirm this, but I'm pretty sure the sweater Helene's wearing is the same sweater that Elizabeth is wearing in the trailer in the future.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's like a really specific like beige sweater with like a weird
Like a
design
fox
on it.
on it.
Yeah, but I don't know what that is. It's probably a coincidence because it's not like that's the same sweater.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely I think that she originally thinks that, and like this is a demon that's not real.
Right, like because I was like, oh, she's probably putting it together. This is her daughter time traveling, but that wouldn't make any sense to her. What makes more sense is her mother always told her that the babies that you abort are going to hell, and this woman calls her mother.
Mm-hmm.
So to her, that the religion part of it, the hell part of it, would make way more sense than time travel.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's completely spot on. And then it's just the one thing though is that Katerina was not killed in a dress. So the whole woman in the lake, that if you can, the clear water's clear enough, you can see her dress.
Right.
That still would not be Katerina.
I did notice that because I actually went back and watched some other stuff from that episode, and I noticed I watched that scene where Bartos is trying to mess with Martha about the woman and says you can see her dress. It also seems like if somebody was killed if somebody was drowned there in 1986, it's weird that lore would be told. Like it's this like urban legend. It's not like it's that long ago.
Yeah, I think this is not. I think we're going to see another drowning at this lake.
Yeah.
So I still don't think Hannah's out of the woods. I still think Egon ends up killing her.
Well, she would have to give birth first if her daughter is Scylla.
So Egon probably finds out that Hannah didn't get the abortion and isn't telling Egon about the kid, and then gets furious about it.
So we'd have to jump a little bit in the future for that then. We'd have to jump at least a year into the future.
Yeah, I know.
Because she's just now pregnant, so we'd have to jump at least 9 months into the future. I just wonder if maybe, urban legends sometimes get like, tall tales get twisted a little bit. So
It
maybe
just so specifically said that's a dress.
right.
We'll see. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no way to really. I just think that's not the last time we see that lake. And there's been a tragedy at that lake, but I don't think that tragedy.
And we also potentially have HG's kids that are there too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we'll see. We'll have to see. But yeah, that's a couple things
Yeah. So Helene puts the rocks in Katerina's backpack as well, and then puts her in the lake to drown her. It's weird. I don't know how she would get her that far out with the rocks, where she would. Maybe I don't know. I guess that's just kind of.
It seems like Katerina's going to pop back up, and no one's going to have any idea who she is.
Oh, that would be interesting if she's not actually dead.
Yeah.
She was bludgeoned really hard. She might not even know who she is.
Yeah. So
I mean, maybe she would pop up, have no idea who she is, and she gets put in the mental hospital with Ulrich.
Right. And Helene has to see her every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be a very interesting twist.
Just because they show her face and like she looks similar to how Helge looked, which Helge looked dead, but he wasn't. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
If she never died there, then she finds a way to survive.
Although she is put in the lake with rocks in her backpack and she's unconscious, she might drown.
Yeah, but what I meant more than that, which I don't think she survives that, is that eventually she comes to the surface dead. Like, because the way she's in that water is face down in the water. It's very similar to how Francesca's in the water when Magnus finds her.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she comes to the surface already dead. She's dead, but someone finds the body, but no one's able to identify her because she didn't exist. She traveled back there.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's just another random woman who's found, similar to how Claudia was found when she's dead. And I think another woman was found who they can't identify. So maybe it's similar to that.
Okay. Yeah. They do talk about somebody being face down in the water and being found. So that would make a lot of sense too.
Yeah.
But she's not in a dress. You're right. Mm-hmm. So then Mikkel and Ines return home and finally they're coming home. So I guess I was wrong when I said they wrote Mikkel out of this show because he's got too old.
Yep.
Ines says, "Here we go again." So they are back home. Apparently nothing is really out of sorts from Katerina being there for a few months, except Mikkel does notice the broken window and seems a little disturbed by the broken window.
Yeah, he focuses in on it.
Any idea why that would be?
I don't really know.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what he was, because he's definitely.
Why was the window broken?
The window was broken because Katerina broke in. Because
Okay.
Katerina was living there.
Yeah. So I don't know what. So maybe it's just like a way of like feeling his mother was there, maybe, or something.
Or just like feeling unsafe because he doesn't know Katerina was there, obviously.
Yeah.
And we're not sure at this point. I mean, she doesn't call him Michael or Mikkel. She calls him Michael. So we don't even know what he knows at this point. Yeah. So, he like what he knows in terms of like, does he remember that he's Mikkel?
Right.
And I also thought it was like very interesting timing that maybe it's just conveniently written, but that Ines returns home with Michael as soon as Katerina is killed. So had they come home a day earlier, Katerina would have been there.
Almost like she knew when to come back.
Right. Almost like she knew, or that it's this tragedy. That Katerina and Ulrich's life close. Is just they're always so close, that Ulrich was so close to getting Mikkel home. Katerina was so close to getting Ulrich out and so close to being in the house when Mikkel returned home, that like all of these things are just a heartbeat away from being different.
A thread away almost.
Yeah, thread away. All right, so then we see young Katerina at home. Her mother returns. Her mother was wearing a pink jacket, and I think the lighting in this scene just makes it where that jacket looks very red, so much like Mikkel and his red jacket. And Helene immediately starts drinking, and it seems like she's kind of coming to grips with what just happened. And Katerina's asking her, are you okay? What happened? And, there is definitely some realization in her eyes when she's looking at her daughter. And then she's immediately kind of in denial about it and grabs Katerina by the face and sees a hickey on her neck and starts hitting her and calling her a tramp. It says, "You are unworthy of the name I gave you. I should have sent you away too." So do you have any thoughts on that?
Just dark stuff. like just dark things to say to your daughter. Like we'd had hints that Katerina had trouble with her mother previous to this and not having the best relationship with her.
Mhm.
And it's just that the fact that Katerina planted the seeds of doubt in a way in her own mother kind of is tragic.
Yeah, I think that like the fact that she brings up even that you're unworthy, like so she holds Hannah in such a high regard, or this like other version of Katerina in such a high regard that she thinks that it's like really important, this name, and she gave it to Katerina and doesn't love Katerina.
Yep.
And I think also there is something deep down inside of her that knows that she just killed her daughter.
Yeah.
Or at least killed a version of her daughter.
Yep. So Hannah, by posing as Katerina, continues to ruin Katerina's life.
Right. And I think that there is a whole bunch of this character of Helene is pushing her demons back down into her guilt that's passed on from her family.
Yeah.
And from what she just did as well.
Yep. And she doesn't survive the 2019 or whatever. She dies at some point. So she probably kills herself, which would be like the ultimate betrayal of religion.
Right. Yeah. I feel like we do not see Helene in 2019. So I don't think Helene is still with us, which is why I thought Katerina was going to end up killing Helene. But something probably will happen to Helene that we'll see.
Yeah. And another suicide, the suicide of Helene with the suicide of Michael would be pretty interesting, how it affects Katerina. So. Right.
And I do think that, Helene has some dark stuff that happened in her past. I mean, we saw her getting an abortion at like 12 years old.
Yeah, if this wasn't last season, I definitely would be anticipating more Helene. But I think there's only going to be a little bit left, and it's going to be tragic.
Right. So
maybe Katerina causes it in some way.
Right. Well, and Katerina, this is Katerina's tragic upbringing as well, right? That she has this stuff going on at her home.
Yep.
And didn't we get, and I'd have to look back at my notes from season 1, but didn't we get something about Katerina being abused in the first season when we get Katerina in the 80s when she's talking to Egon? I feel like there was some stuff about her abuse that she had faced as well.
Yeah, Egon asked if, someone asked if, Katerina brings up how, look what my parents did to me when they found out about what I did with Ulrich.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, that was it.
Yeah. But I think that was it.
Yeah, because there definitely was a reference to Katerina's home life early on in the show.
Yeah, and it's like explicitly said that they caused a black eye because otherwise we. So it's like explicitly said that they caused a black eye.
Right.
She was having sex, which adds up with everything else about it.
Yep. All right, so then we get our montage. We see the coin, the St. Christopher coin, which, of course, is in Katerina's hand, is going to now be buried in the sand, waiting for Jonas and Martha to find it on the beach that day. We have Ulrich waiting for Katerina, staring at the clock. This was like where I just felt so bad for Ulrich. Like he's just like, what an awful life his life has turned into for all these years, and his one hope to leave is now gone. Yeah. And he might have done some bad things when he was younger, but this old man has lived such a hard life. Mm-hmm. Then we've got alternate Charlotte leaving, and she's staring into Ulrich's office. We do not know where alternate Ulrich has been. We did not see him at all in this episode. Mm-hmm. We see HG working on a clock. Charlotte returns home. Peter is following a flashlight into Helge's cabin, and he sees Doppler. And this is where I was like, oh, Peter has just been told that his father is Doppler, but I don't think they said your father is Helge, and he's like got this facial deformity and he's not all with it. I think he just assumes, okay, this is Doppler. This is the only Doppler in Winden. Yeah. And then we see Peter and Elizabeth in the alternate world. We see Peter's dead body with the knife sticking out of the neck. We see Elizabeth now going to the cave, fulfilling her destiny. She sees Noah walk out. And we see Claudia finishing reading the book that alternate Claudia has given her. Mm-hmm. And then we go to Eve's lair, Eve's headquarters. And this is where I noticed on the family tree that Hannah and Egon's daughter is Celia. So just when they show it at that point. Jonas and Martha get there, and this time they're standing under the artwork, but it's flipped. So Martha is standing where under the Adam picture, and Jonas is standing under the Eve picture.
Mhm.
Every other time we've seen this, it's been the other
I
way
noticed
around, where
that,
Jonas has been the Adam. So Eve walks in and says, "It's what you will become, and so it begins all anew." Jonas says, "You said we could save both worlds and it's only one, or was that a lie?" He said, "I want to return to my world now." And Eve says, "No way back for you at all." And then she says, which is a repeat of a line that Adam said when Adam and Jonas first met, "A human lives 3 lives. First is the loss of naivety. Second is the loss of innocence. And finally, the loss of life. Your life ends here and now." And that, not the here and now part, not that your life ends here and now, but the rest of it was said by Adam when they first met.
Yep.
And we see right when she says that. So also I wrote down, I put here and now in quotes. I have not looked at, I'm not looking at the episode titles beyond the very next episode, but it would not surprise me if the title of the finale is here and now.
Yeah.
It seems like that would be the phrase that we're going to use.
I can see that.
Yeah, so we see a version of Martha walk out with the scar fresh.
Mhm.
And so the scar that we've seen Eve have is much fresher on her face. So she must have just gotten this. Wherever this version of Martha is walking out, at first I was very confused. I was like, wait, we have 4 Marthas now? How do we have 4?
Yeah.
But this is just a slightly more in the future version of alternate Martha that we've already seen. So
Yep.
This is her having returned from her time with Adam.
Yep.
So I don't know where we last saw. I think the last place that we saw this version of Martha, she did not have this scar. Obviously, she did not have the scar. And this is when Adam was telling her that she's pregnant with the seed.
Yeah.
So at some point, we have to find out what happened from then to her getting the scar to her returning to this point where she kills Jonas.
Yeah. Probably next episode.
Yeah, I would assume that's probably if we're getting the next episode. And so she says she's sorry to Martha, and then she shoots Jonas, much like Adam shot Martha in the last finale. And Jonas bleeds out and dies right in the middle of that family tree. It was such a nice, like, engraved floor. It was sad to see that all stained with blood.
Yeah, Colt worked hard on that.
Yeah. And it's like there's so much information on there. At first I hated it. Now I've come around to that, and I like that family tree.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so then Jonas gives the coin to Martha. So that St. Christopher coin. And I'm not sure how that Jonas got it. That's the thing I'm very confused on. But now he's given it to Martha. We'll see that version of Martha, when she travels back and is with Adam, she's wearing that coin. And she's looking at it when she's with the stranger. And there's a reason why, because it reminds her of Jonas.
Yep.
But I have no idea how Jonas got that coin. Do you?
No, I don't think we've been shown that.
Yeah. So we did see in the episode where they're on the beach by the lake, Jonas digs up the coin from the sand. It might be that he just keeps the coin the whole time, and now, like a year and a half later, he's finally giving her the coin. But it's still not quite clear.
Yeah, I think I really do think we're gonna have that cleared up. It's too important not to.
Because at some point the stranger ends up with that coin and puts it on Martha's bed. But we never saw Martha give it back to Jonas that I remember.
Yeah. No, I don't either.
Because I went and watched the scene where Martha's killed, and I didn't see her. I thought maybe when she was killed, she did the same thing to him. When she was killed, she gave him the coin, but I didn't see that when I watched it.
Yeah. No, I don't. And I've been keeping a pretty close eye on that coin, too.
Yeah.
So,
and Jonas dies right where his gunshot is in the stomach, much like Martha's. His gunshot matches up with the infinity symbol on the middle of the family tree.
Yep.
And the Marthas walk off, and the episode comes to an end.
Yeah.
So, our next episode is called Light and Shadows. So, of course, that's the two, so we've heard people say is the two sides, the Eve and the Adam side. One is light and one is shadows.
Yep.
You have any predictions for what we'll see in that next episode?
We'll see how Jonas gets the St. Christopher medal. That's my hope.
Oh, okay. So think we're going to see like a flashback to Jonas, like a younger version of Jonas?
Yeah. That's my hope.
Yeah. So let's see. So we're one day away from the apocalypse in the alternate world. So we might see that apocalypse happen because something has to happen for that to happen. And I would think that we are going to see how Martha got that scar. So we're going to go back to alt-world Martha before she comes to kill Jonas at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to see that as well. And maybe we'll see the merging of Claudia's.
Yeah. Hopefully the fly theory will be true.
Yes, that would be good. All right, let's take a look at our feedback. Again, if you are listening along, email us digestingdarkpod@gmail.com. We'll be doing a full feedback show after episode 7, between episode 7 and episode 8.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the first email.
Are we doing MVPs now, or do we do that at the end?
We can do it now. That's fine.
Okay. Peter. Peter's my MVP. Most valuable Peter episode.
All right, most valuable Peter. Any particular reason besides the fact that he dies and goes to a house that is probably not actually his father?
He shows up and, has a great pickup line with angsty teen Charlotte that he also is complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what a great pickup line for a teenager on another. Just overall, I think that, I've been wanting to give him this MVP for his redemption, and I'm going to give it to him for it. It's a career MVP for Peter. I don't think I've given him one before this, so this is for a lifetime of work.
Lifetime achievement for Peter. And we do still have alternate Peter, so maybe we'll get more from him.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to give mine to Claudia, specifically alternate Claudia, although they might get combined. But she gave herself the information. It seems like she is moving things along and is in the know, and she did not end up causing anybody to die in this episode.
Yep, she'll do that next episode.
Probably. So I guess I could have given it to HG also, but I think I'll have a reason to give one to HG soon. So our current standings for MVPs, Peter has 2, the 3 ninjas have 2, alternate Martha has 2, and Katarina has 2. I have a feeling Katarina's not going to be getting any more.
Yeah, I think she's done.
Yeah. So Claudia and Jonas each have 1 MVP point.
Okay.
All right. So let's talk about our feedback that we have for episode number 5. Again, email digestingdarkpod@gmail.com and send us your feedback with the episode number in the subject line, and we will be doing a full-on feedback show before we get to the finale between episode 7 and episode 8. All right, Adrian Colley said, first of all, he cannot believe that you called it. He said, Bartos pranked Martha with that childish ghost story of the dead woman in the lake. And Aaron said we would hear more on the backstory of that woman. I was sure he was taking it too seriously, but there you go. And exactly what body goes in there in this episode. And he said he doesn't mind admitting when he's wrong. Congratulations on your excellent prediction.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if it's even done yet. So I love my conspiracy theories. So I'm still waiting for a woman in a dress to die there.
The one thing I do like about it being Katerina is just the layer that it adds on, that Bartos was making fun of Martha with that story and like scaring Martha with that story. And the story was actually about her own mother.
Yeah.
So
that is fair. And so, and like she is, Katerina is buried in that very unique like 80s garb. So kind of looks like colorful. So maybe they're seeing that shirt and think it's a dress.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's lots of ways, but I still, if there were a woman to be killed in the dress at the lake in the 50s or something, I'm not going to shout.
Yeah.
Maybe Doris
mm-hmm.
for wanting to divorce and she'll probably want to take Claudia. So
could be.
Maybe it will be over protecting Claudia for Egon.
Maybe there's just a whole stack of bodies at the bottom of the lake.
Yeah, it's a bunch of ladies.
Yes. That
lady lake. But thank you. I'll take the congratulations, but we're not done celebrating. I'm like a team that's won.
You're up. You got a 3-1 lead right now. 28-3 lead.
Exactly.
All right. So he also says he apologizes for this mental image, but do we suppose that with the 3 ninjas, when the middle ninja Colt and Agnes are conceiving Trante, that the elder ninja and the younger ninja are just standing there watching?
Oh.
Like, do you think we'll see this at all?
Well, kind of like Midsommar style.
Oh, it is sort of like Midsommar.
Yeah. Maybe they give them a push.
Everybody needs a push.
Hey, there we go.
Yep, that's what Adam said too.
Yeah.
All right, so Amy Gentile writes in, and she says, I am so confused about Katerina's parents. The tile floor family tree says that her mom is Helene Albers. Yes, we know that. And her father is Herman Albers. Apparently, that is the name of the sheep farmer from the previous seasons. But Helene was so young when she went to have an abortion, and she introduced herself as Helene Albers. Are we to believe that she was married to Herman Albers at that young age, making her last name Albers, and for some reason wanted to get an abortion? Or was she born out in Albers, and Herman is a relative that got her pregnant multiple times?
That's what happened.
It is very unclear, and I wanted to get both of your opinions on this.
Product of incest for sure. Ship it. I was trying to figure
Katerina
out where
is the product of incest.
I was trying to figure out where I'd seen that out. Yeah, from Helene and. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I think that the father could. Yeah, the father is the farmer.
The sheep farmer who. I didn't realize that his name was Albers.
I remember seeing that document because I was still watching credits at that point, and he wasn't Albers. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it might be that she was just a young bride. That maybe she had a different name, but she was she was taken at like 12 years old by him, and was it sounds like she's had multiple abortions based on how she talks about it, and she decided to keep Katerina for whatever reason, and that was the only one that she kept.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm still holding out that Katerina is the daughter of Noah or something, just because like otherwise she's really not connected to anybody else in this.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and I think actually too, if you think about if Helene thought that this age Katerina who was there, so that Katerina was probably about the age that one of her babies could have been that she aborted when she was 12 years old. Because if she's in her 50s, late 40s, early 50s, and she I guess that the age doesn't quite work out actually when I think about it.
Yeah.
So, and she said the next show that we should talk about is Netflix's Haunting of Hill House. I have
seen this.
I only watched a little bit of that. I never finished it.
I have seen it. I liked it. I didn't love it like everybody else, but there's some really, really great episodes.
Is there just one season?
It's just one season. I think they're doing a second season right now, so that's not a terrible suggestion. Maybe on a rewatch, I would get a lot more out of it. A lot of people I really like that show. So not if I had to choose like a horror series, I slightly prefer to that. It would be another kind of foreign language show. It'd be Marianne on Netflix. It's a French show. Yep, I really like that one. So if anybody out there is looking for another kind of dark, weird foreign show, Marianne on Netflix, I really like it.
Yeah. I watched that one. I did like that as well. All right, so then we've got some feedback from Walter Prager, and he says he's still trying to figure out how Stranger Jonas is still alive. So this is something we talked about earlier. It said either we have a paradox, or maybe Jonas is only mostly dead. It might be hokey, but if he's only mostly dead, then he could develop some sort of amnesia, which is explaining why Stranger Jonas doesn't remember Martha. So I don't like this. Hopefully the writers come up with a better explanation.
Yeah, I don't think he's mostly dead.
No, and that would like take out so much of the gravity of this scene. And he even points to like him passing on the coin, really points to him being dead. And this is like a daytime soap opera, right? Like,
yeah.
That's like, we're not getting that. We're not getting amnesia.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, looking at slightly future Martha, who shot Jonas, had the large scar on her face, which was a large cut at the time. And he said, I was expecting the two younger Marthas to fight after Jonas was shot, but I guess she just gets it later.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, that scar comes from something. We'll see what it is. Maybe it's the fence once again getting its way with her.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And finally, we have an email from Jeremy Exel, who's my friend, who just recently binged all of Dark and is now ahead of us on Dark somehow. It's amazing. And he said he loved the bus driver. It's the best 5-second character on the series.
Yeah, he had a good line. What are you waiting for, an invitation?
Right.
The bus driver always has a funny quip when you're not quick enough to get on the bus.
Right, exactly. Making you feel like an idiot. Or like when
you're favorite.
Yeah. He's your what?
He's my second bus driver to the bus driver from Speed.
Ah, yes, the bus. Which bus driver in Speed? There's a couple of them.
The one who got shot. Spoiler alert.
Oh man, just like Jonas.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, Brennan Fitzpatrick asked who was the vagrant that we saw in the trailer.
He looked like the stranger, but I know he's not.
No, he can't be because he got killed.
Right. I know. And like the stranger went, but I'm just saying, like he was just a rando.
What if he's the son of the bus driver? I don't think it would. I mean, it might not have any reason.
Sometimes I'm okay with a character just being in the wrong place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he was anybody.
Well, if you have any theories on who that vagrant was, or maybe we'll find out in the next episode if he was anybody.
Tannhouse.
Yeah, exactly. He's a Tannhouse. He's Tannhouse's baby, all grown up.
That's Enos's baby. Got
Or
made
Enos's
all the way
baby.
to made it all the way to future. Just to after all that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up our discussion of Season 3, Episode 5, Life and Death. I'm going to go on a limb and say this was our longest episode that we've had a podcast on.
It is not the most tired I felt, though. A lot of the things the reason I think this is able to be so long is a lot of things that are shown are very concrete for once, actually. So, obviously,
as they said, life and death, the only certainties in life, you're born and you die.
Yeah, it's like very certain. So, like, it's very certain. I don't think Katarina, just to be clear, I don't think Katarina survives and comes to the surface, like, emerges Swamp Thing style from the lake. So, I really do. I don't think that. So, I do think at some point that backpack is going to slip off her shoulders. She's going to come to the surface, and, like, Daniel Conwell, there's something that's going to be like, there's this random woman we don't know how to identify. Kind of similar to the random kids showing up in all these random bodies that show up. So I think there's a possibility of that. But yeah.
Do you have any? So going back to the very beginning of this episode, we hear an old woman giving the narration about why do we die? Could we escape if we expect it? And is dying is predetermined? We all have one thing in common: we're born and we die. Do you have any prediction on who that woman's voice could be?
Have we seen an old Hannah?
We've not.
Yeah, there we go, Hannah.
Okay, so I think after this episode and what we saw from Charlotte and HG and the things that she's asking HG, and that Charlotte is about to go on some mission, maybe she gets left in the past and it's an old version of Charlotte.
Okay.
Because Charlotte plays a big role, so I'm going to say that was Charlotte giving that monologue.
Okay. Those are two good bets.
Yeah. So, well, hopefully we'll find out. So our next episode, we had Life and Death. We now have Death and Shadows, so another blank and blank naming convention. That's going to be episode number 6. So we are barreling down the stretch towards our apocalypse. And we already gave our predictions. We already did our MVPs. We did our feedback. So that is going to wrap up this show. Thank you once again for listening. If you do want to send in your feedback, digestingdarkpod@gmail.com. Include the episode number in your subject line. Make sure you get feedback in for that big feedback show we're doing before the finale. And you also can follow us on Twitter. I'm at BrooksZA.
And I'm at Aaron Jay Brooks.
And we will see you next time for Season 3, Episode 6, Light and Shadows.
See ya.